Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at Day 5 of From Classroom to Boardroom, a virtual event series addressing issues of equity in the workplace and inclusive economic recovery, both in Charlottesville, Virginia, and in communities across the country. Today, we're going to get tactical, providing job seekers with resources they need to advance their careers and with employers best practices for how to encourage that. We'd like to thank the United Way of Greater Charlottesville, the University of Virginia, and the Virginia Tourism Corporation, as well as a number of community partners and collaborators for their support in bringing this program to life. We are especially excited for this morning's session, How to Get Your Foot in the Door, and the importance of building a social network. And with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Laura Markley. She's the managing director and general partner at NRV, where she oversees the organization's early stage growth fund, which invests in high growth ventures. Laura, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Ben, and great to see everyone today, even in this remote format. It is my absolute pleasure to be a moderator today with Victor, who I consider both a colleague in the finance space, but also a friend. He's incredibly involved in the community as well. And so we're hoping today, both Victor and I, that we can do a little bit of a deep dive into how both of us have gotten where we are, but also sort of how we creatively got there. What did it mean to network? How did we get our foot in the door? And as we look at careers like Victor's, what does that mean to develop a personal brand and to go out and define success for yourself, not only in your career, but in your broader life in the community as well? Victor has been with Bank of America since 1984. He's currently the head of the Richmond market and deeply involved in the community as well, as I mentioned. He serves on the board of visitors for William & Mary. He's a trustee of several foundations, including the Virginia Foundation for Independent Colleges, Virginia Museum of History and Culture, Chamber RVA, and Venture Richmond. He's also a charter member of the Richmond Urban Financial Services Coalition and serves on the executive committee of the Community Foundation of Richmond. Victor, as we sort of kick off this conversation, we just chatted a little bit through your bio about where you are now. Would you mind talking to us a little bit about how you got there? Give us a little bit of a glimpse into the background, sort of how did Victor get to where Victor is now? Obviously not in the third person, although you're welcome to go there. And just a sense of what it took. You know, was it networking? Was it personal brand? Was it just never give upness? How did sort of opportunity and hard work meet as you look back at your history?
Well, good morning, Laura, and thank you for that great invitation. In reading my bio, my mother would be proud. Is that her kid? Where she with us today? But thank you for this opportunity. So excited to be with you again, a colleague and a friend, talking about my favorite topic, me. But all kidding aside, this is a great opportunity, and I thank Tom Foundation for extending the invitation to us to share our story. Laura, I will start, and it's hard to believe you said 1984, which we do our math, that's 37 years, and that doesn't seem possible. It seems like I can't be that many years at work. I can't be that many years old, but where does the time go, buddy? I often look in the mirror and say, wow, you are the least likely person to end up where you are, Victor, given where you come from. And my story is not unique in the sense that it's a great American story, but it is unique that a poor rural kid like me coming out of Dinwiddie County from the fifth of 5 children to 2 parents who did not finish high school ended up in the career that I ended up in and succeeding and growing in the career that I've been so fortunate to be in these last 37 years. And I often say, what was different and what key thing I could put my finger on? And I have to say it was getting a good, solid education and beyond my high school degree that put me on the trajectory to where I am today. And again, having parents who didn't have that exposure or that opportunity, they grew up in the 40s and the 50s in the rural South, Southern Virginia, where things were not easy, and the only opportunities most African Americans at that time had to look forward to was working on the farm that either their parents owned or they were sharecroppers for, or they went and worked in a factory in the city, be it Petersburg, coming to Richmond, and then part of that great migration north, Baltimore, New York, and points north. In fact, a large portion of my mother's family settled in Boston, and became very successful business people because opportunities were far more available to African Americans in the North back then. And so they ended up getting married too young, early, and they were basically working either on the farm or in factories. But one thing they knew for their 5 children was that they knew they wanted them to have a better life. And isn't that every parent's wish and desire for their children to have a better life than them? And the one thing that they knew that would allow us, my siblings and myself, to get ahead was an opportunity to have an education. But I was a knucklehead in school, didn't take it seriously when I was in high school. And so when I was ready to graduate, the question hit me, what am I going to do next? I had worked in tobacco fields as a teenager, and I failed miserably at that. I just could not do that hard work. And that is literally back-breaking work, working in a tobacco field. And it's funny, you don't even see tobacco fields now because of obviously what has happened to the smoking industry. But that was a big thing back in the 70s. And I knew I did not want to work that hard physically. And then I saw where my father was just really working to the grindstone in a factory in a plant in Petersburg, and that just didn't seem appealing to me. And I said, what are my options? And fortunately, I had someone tell me, check into Richard Bland College, which is a 2-year junior college in Petersburg. And I hope many people know about them. And Laura, it was a game changer for me. It was just the right size. Virginia State was too big. And a lot of the kids I palled around with and didn't take education seriously with in high school, several of them matriculated to Virginia State. And I knew I wouldn't change and I wouldn't take my education seriously if I stuck with that crowd. And of course I had wise parents. They might not have been educated, but they were wise, telling me you can't keep doing the same thing expecting different outcomes. Haven't we all heard that, right? And I said, well, okay, well, let me try this Richard Bland thing. And wow, what a change that was, because it was a very small African-American population at that liberal arts 2-year college. And, but it was just the right size for me that I was able to find my potential with great guidance and mentors from my sociology professor to even the administrators, the president, Clarence Mays and his staff. They were so welcoming. It was like a family. And they showed me, this poor kid from Dinwiddie, DeWitt, in fact, what his potential is. And within a year's time, I was really starting to hit my stride. And one of my proudest accomplishments, Laura, was the fact I became the first African-American student government president at Richard Bland with a student population of 3% minority. And how does that happen? You know, I did not see my color as a crutch or a disadvantage. I won people over by connecting with them and showing our commonness rather than our differences, and people were welcoming, and they were like, okay, may not have had Black friends in their respective schools that they came from, but this kid's color has nothing to do with his ability to hear my issues and help champion my causes. And we had a successful administration as student government president. But that was an extracurricular activity. At the same time, I was getting my academic legs under me, helping me get academically focused with my professors. Again, just the right size for me. And so I really was able to flourish with great mentors and supporters outside of my family in that environment. And when it was time to graduate from Richard Bland with my associate's degree, it is a part of the William and Mary system. It was natural for me to matriculate to William and Mary, which again, back to high school, not a serious student. I'm probably on record at William and Mary as having the lowest SAT scores to ever get into William and Mary. But I'm glad they look at the whole person and not just one test, which, there's a whole nother discussion around that today. And they looked at all of my capabilities and my accomplishments in addition to my academic success. And I obviously went into that bigger system and was able to find my place there as well, connecting with the professors, with the administrators, with fellow students, and finding common interests that we all could rally around. And again, getting an academic education, but a life education as well, above and beyond. So I go back to the education is the passport out of poverty. And I am a living witness to that. And I tell my daughters and my nieces and nephews, everyone who will sit and listen to me, that was one of the key elements to getting me to where I am today.
And Victor, could I ask you just a follow-up question based on that? You mentioned as you were moving through kind of your academic background and facing challenges that mentorship and finding commonality were really sort of important foundational nexus elements to kind of that early network building. As you started your career and as you worked sort of up the ranks at Bank of America, did you find that you were networking in the same way, or did that sort of evolve over time? How did that kind of foundation of mentorship and finding commonality play in your career path?
Absolutely, and great point. It did evolve. I did learn, but I knew going into my work career, and I was fortunate enough to get hired right off the campus of William and Mary into what was then an exciting new merger of two Virginia banks, F&M and Virginia National Bank. And it was the merger to start all mergers. That's how it was promoted. And these two massive Virginia banks came together to form a $12 billion bank and 12,000 employees statewide. And I was in that first class of manager trainees who came off of college campuses and were to be the future leaders of that bank. And coming into that training program set me up and my fellow trainees up for a successful career, provided we really got into it and really took advantage of the opportunities that it afforded us, and the exposure it gave us. And everyone has been told, you get out of it what you put into it. And so I was fortunate enough, I learned that early, and I learned to meet people to learn their stories. I think one of the key things that I've been able to do effectively throughout my career is to connect with people on a personal level, let them know I'm interested in them. And I don't care whether it was a mentor-mentee relationship and I was the mentee, obviously I'm interested in them. And when I'm in that position of authority now, I make sure I feel and let people feel like they have as much to contribute and are valuable as anybody. And I've been able to kind of break down those barriers and walls that people tend to put up. And first thing I do is I learn that person's name, Laura, and you use that person's name. There is nothing more personal to a person than their name. And when you show you acknowledge them, you see them by using their name, and they then begin to open up to you and share with you, and you connect on a different level. And as I began my career, I made sure I made people feel that I certainly wanted a genuine connection and relationship with them. And when I went into the branch consumer system of banking, and when you walk into any branch, you see the manager, the teller, the whole team there. My philosophy was always to make sure the tellers knew they were as important, if not more important, to that system and the effectiveness of that branch than the manager or the assistant manager or anyone in management. In fact, because in our business, 90% of our interactions are with those tellers. And if they are feeling validated and valued, then we know that we're doing right by our clients. So my whole philosophy and has been and always will be is, have you validated someone today? And that has helped me get connected with people internally and externally throughout my whole career. And it has allowed my reputation to precede me. And so now when I meet people, because Laura Markley knows me, and she's talked to Joe Schmo, and she's already been an advocate for me before I've even met that person. And then that just kind of builds on itself. And the converse of that is as true too, because if you are not seen as a good person, as a person who is genuine, who is trying to do the right thing and with integrity and whatnot, that reputation will precede you as well. And you will have a harder time trying to make a connection.
And Victor, let's park on that concept of valued and validated for a minute, because as I look at your bio, your community service and involvement is obviously playing a big part of where you are today, and I imagine where you've been in the past as well. So as you think about that kind of valued and validated, how has that impacted how you view your community service? And on the flip side, how has the community service perhaps valued your network building or your career skill set, or sort of all of the above?
Oh, great point. A great question. I think I was joking with you earlier that I am on so many boards, and I love my board service, and I get so much really internal joy from being able to bring my whole self to the mission and vision of the organizations that I'm affiliated with and that I'm fortunate enough to serve for. And I've been in leadership programs where servant leadership is the principle of the program, and to some it's just a term and a concept. But you know the people who are really living it, and with 90% of the people I serve with on all those boards I serve on, they're there for that reason. And what I have seen time and time again is that doing good and doing well are not mutually exclusive. and being able to bring your skills, your talents, your thought leadership, your whole self to these organizations and helping them achieve their mission and their vision. And you get in there and you're working with like-minded people, it really feeds off of itself, and you have that multiplier effect, and that spin wheel just starts to turn, and people just really start to really get excited about moving that mission forward. And then you start building really deep connections with the fellow board members that you are serving with, because collectively and collaboratively, you are making a difference with those for that organization. And I have been very, very intentional and very deliberate about the boards that I serve on. You'll see a common theme in my service, and it's back to where you and I started this conversation. Is it serving an educational purpose to reach others? And it's obvious and in your face with William and Mary that is. It is in your face with the Virginia Foundation for Independent Colleges that that's the case. But it's not so obvious with, say, Virginia Museum of History and Culture. But it is an amazing institution telling the story about Virginia's history and the amazing leaders that have come through and from the soils of Virginia. And I get all nerdy when I get into a board meeting and start thinking about the work of Virginia Museum of History and Culture. And they've had a history of being exclusive and only telling one story of Virginia. And now, in the last 3 years, particularly with this board and with this new CEO we have, and Jamie Bosket, we are so focused on telling all of Virginians' stories and the impact we all have had to make this society work the way it has. And one of the most enjoyable things that I have done in the last years was to serve on the advisory committee that put together the exhibit in 2019 called Determine: The 400-Year Struggle for Black Equality, to recognize the 400th anniversary of the first enslaved people coming to this land. And the 400, it did it in 4 quadrants, just the Virginians who have shaped and guided this society we live in today and enjoy. The untold stories, the unsung heroes, the learnings that I got to uncover and discover just made me feel so proud of my people and the resiliency and the determination in the title that we were able to tell in that story. That's not in your face education, but it's a great education that we all can buy. So that's why I get involved in these organizations, because I have been given so much, and too much is given, much is required, right? And it's only fitting that I turn around and give back for that poor kid of color living in rural Southern Virginia who doesn't think he can be where I am today. And my philosophy is you can't be what you can't see. And so I want these kids, not just in Southern rural Virginia, where I come from, but in the east end of Richmond, and in the coal country of Southwest Virginia, to know that there are opportunities, but education is that passport to get you to those opportunities, and you can live a full and fulfilling life when you go that direction.
Victor, I love the kind of secondary dimension you've put on education here, because I think, a lot of people sort of, especially when they're going through school, either high school or college, feels like it's sort of a test at the end. Like, did I get into that school I wanted to? Yes or no. I either succeed or I fail. And then at the end of college, or when they're looking for a job, did I get that job I really wanted? Yes or no. And if the answer is no, I failed. I can't do it. And as you talk about education not being only in the classroom, but also in sort of our understandings of history and our understandings of the world, I'm wondering if we take that lens and sort of put it on our careers as well. Because at least as when I look back on some of the jobs I've had, I've gotten some no's that were hard, where I felt like I was qualified, and it might have been for a project or it might have been for a job. And getting that no was tough. And I think as I look back, I realize that I've learned as much from the no's as I have from the yeses, and sometimes even more so from the no's, just as learning about myself. What is it about this job that really motivates me and keeps me passionate about it? Or on the flip side, what elements of it are not something that are a great fit for me long term? And therefore, when I make my next career move, maybe I tweak it a little bit so there's more of that first bucket and less of that second bucket. Could you touch a little bit on either some of the no's or some of the challenges, those kind of unexpected roadblocks that hit, and your immediate reaction is, oh, I failed at this, I got to know. But really, probably as we look back with perspective, realize that it was a really important part of our career journey?
Laura, that is so absolutely true and spot on. And I've had many of those no's and setbacks in my 37-year career that I am so many of them that I've even forgotten many of them. But the thing I take away from what you just shared is I have learned from them. And if I didn't do an assessment, an introspective look at why didn't I get what I thought I deserved, then what do I need to do to be ready for the next opportunity? And that, unfortunately, I've seen for so many younger people who come behind me that I've mentored or tried to advise. They don't take that introspective look at what shortcomings they may have. So they think it's someone else's fault and that they're being picked on, and they're being singled out because they look like this, or they may not have gone to the right school. There's always a degree of that out there. That's life, that's reality. And I know I have been overlooked for things because I didn't come from a certain background, if you will. In my industry, it until recently, it still has a lot of work to do. It has been a white, male-dominated and led industry, obviously. But what is changing, and what has been exacerbated in the last year, as we've all seen this rapid pace of change, is that people in the power brokers are acknowledging that diversity and inclusion and equity is not just something you should say you do, but it's the right thing to do, because when all boats are lifted by the tide, we all win. And that's another subject at another time, that why has it taken this long to get to that realization? But we're getting there, and we're not. I continue to say over the last year since the George Floyd killing is that we can't let it quiet down, and we can't make it be a moment. This has to be a movement, and I think we're still there. But to your question, those no's and those opportunities that I didn't get that I thought I deserved have taught me that you get what you deserve, even though you don't think you do in that moment. You think you do deserve it, but in that moment, you're like, how dare they not? But what can I learn from it to get me prepared for the next opportunity? And what do I bring to that table? And 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 did I sell it? Did I show it? Did I demonstrate it? And if not, how do I do it the next time? And you ask the people who made that decision. You don't assume. And that takes me to another thing culturally. In my culture, you were always told your work speaks for itself, and that you're going to, if you keep doing the right thing, it's going to take care of itself. To a certain degree, yeah, that's table stakes. That's the basics. But you have to, and I've seen and learned the hard way, you have to ask for what you deserve. You have to, one, know your value, and then you have to ask for it. You can't expect someone to just assume that you were going to get there and that you deserve it. You have to demonstrate. And culturally, that was something that I was never told. That you were told, just keep your head down, do your work, and it's going to take care of itself. No, that's not always the case. And so when you raise up and you say, this is the value I bring, and this is why I deserve this, then things start to move much more quickly. And if the person disagrees, then you have to have a real conversation why. And you have to listen to what they're telling you. Because again, if you can't see your faults and know where you can improve, you're not going to survive in many organizations. But when you're willing to take feedback, when you seek that feedback, you incorporate that feedback into your next action. That's where I've been able to grow, and I've gotten that great advice from so many great mentors. So I hope that answered the question you asked, because I know I kind of went.
No, it does. And it actually raises another one, which, I'd just be curious your thoughts on. You mentioned there's moments where we need to accept the no and look internally, sort of that maturity to know that the no isn't always someone else's fault. And even if it is someone else's fault, is there something I can still learn from it and develop with? And at other times we need to advocate. And, I think that resonates with me a lot as well. So venture capital is a 94% male field and something like 92% white. And so on the 7 boards I serve on, I'm the only woman in the room at every meeting, essentially for the last 10 years. And so it's interesting too, to see that play for acceptance versus advocacy, and that fine line, because some situations call for, okay, I'm going to take the no and learn from it. But other situations call for more advocacy of, I'm going to come back to the conversation, explain a little better, why, to your point, I do deserve the compensation or the opportunity. How do you sort of look at your career when you're in a tough situation like that? How do you sort of discern when is the time to take the no and do the internal reflection on what to do better for next time? And when is the time to kind of go back for another round and advocate?
Yeah,
this is a tough question. So
yeah. That's a delicate dance that you got to know where you stand. And back to my point about asking for feedback, when they tell you no, you can't make assumptions that it was you who came up short, or it could have been someone else who was more compelling. So you got to ask the questions. Don't leave it unanswered, and ask, what can I do better? And when you come at it from that posture and that position, you don't put people on the defense, because you're saying it's about me wanting to improve rather than you turning me down. How dare you? And so you seek the feedback, you ask for the coaching, and you then have that conversation with the decision makers to say, why didn't I get it this time? What can I do to be better prepared for the next time? And what is the long-term goal? And when you get in their head, in decision makers' heads like that, then they see you in a whole different light. because they see this person as wanting to be a bigger contributor to this organization's success, wanting to know and have the tools and the know-how and the wherewithal to make this organization more successful. And it isn't about that individual's success. You put yourself in another frame for that decision maker. And that's what I really admire about people who I may have told no in the past, and saying, well, Victor, have helped me understand why I didn't make it this time so I can be better for the next time. And I want to grow. How do you say no to that? If the person says no to that, then you need to look at the place you were working at and determine, is that the values in the place you want to be, because then that place isn't operating on a value system that may align with what you are aspiring to do and be. So, and that's something I advise leaders as well, is you got to have a core set of values. You all have to operate under that same core set of values. And if you see people not, you got to make quick decisions to get people out of the organization, off the team, that are not operating on those core set of values, because that for certain can disrupt, destroy, delay, all of those things, your team's success. And people, and it would give you so much consternation, it's so much frustration, that no one will be able to grow, have a impact that they want to have. And what we say at Bank of America all the time, bring their best selves to work. Everybody wants to be able to bring their best selves to the role. And that's the validation you allow them when you set them up for that success and be able to grow. And again, that builds on their reputation, that allows them to continue to build that network and that brand that they want.
Yeah, Victor, thank you for kind of bringing up that values concept, because I think it is so important as we think about some of our final questions here in our last few minutes. I think at least when I was coming out of undergraduate and graduate school initially, I assumed that a good job was a prestigious company and a high paycheck. That was sort of the default assumption. And often even on-campus recruiting and, mentors are like, hey, if you've got an offer from A, that's a really prestigious sounding company, and B, that, many fewer people have heard from, probably you should take A. And, that may be true, but I think the longer I've worked, the more I've seen that it wasn't the paycheck that aligned with my personal satisfaction in the job. It wasn't the prestigiousness of the name on the front door that aligned with my satisfaction on the job. It was really around my value set. And so for me, that means, am I learning? Am I learning constantly? Am I adding to the skill set and kind of the toolbox that I have as an employee or a team leader or a colleague? But I think it also goes to your point, to that bigger values question of, is this a place where people can be servant leaders and give and receive honest feedback, and a place where we can grow together and make it a safe place in which we can accept the things that we're not quite as good at, and celebrate the things that we are really good at. And so my question for you, Victor, as in these last few minutes, as we kind of wrap up, is what does that value set mean to you as you define career success now and as you think about the future? So in your current kind of situation with Bank of America and all of your community involvement and the values you've talked about with us today, what does success mean for you now? And as you look towards the future, what else do you want to do? What else would you like to add to this sort of either value set or skill set that would bring success in the future as you cast your vision forward?
Yeah, thank you, Laura, for that question. Yeah, I think I'm now at that age where, obviously you're in various stages in your career, and when you come in, you're trying to build your place, and you're trying to show your worth and your value and your contribution, and you're trying to get up that ladder. And I've reached a place at this company that I'm in a good place, and I've earned it, and I feel like I've been a big contributor, but I know that the company's been good to me too. And each iteration of this company that I've seen from 1984 to 2021 has been better and stronger, and it just speaks to my values. And I'm in a place in the company. I work on the ESG side of the company, the environmental, social, and governance side, that really, really speaks to my value system about supporting our communities and reaching our communities and making those communities stronger, and ensuring that the least among us, it can have a level playing field. And to get to do that work for this $1 trillion company, and to see the difference that we can make when we act in the community, it's an intangible asset that I just can't even put words to, that I get to sort of be the conscience for this corporation, and to help this corporations be that good citizen in the communities where it sits. And that's so rewarding, Laura, to me, this poor kid from Southern Virginia, to be able to now direct resources from this massive corporation that's across this country into communities that can help kids who look like me, who don't look like me, but who come from the same like limited resources, get to a place where I can sit. And for me to be able to really have an impact on that in my company, and to know that I can help direct that and drive that, again, feeds something in me that is so important. And then in the leadership role that I sit in as the president of the Richmond region, the Central Virginia region, and to have 2,000 teammates who are along the spectrum of just coming in to ready to retire, and to be able to be an advocate and a champion for those teammates, and understand what their values are, and to know that I can help lead them to become even a more valuable employee to the company, and to bring their best selves to work. And I can be that advocate and their cheerleader. It again feeds something in me that really motivates me and inspires me. And I've always loved working for Bank of America, from the many different names it has been. And my wife of 33 years today, Laura, so any ideas on what I could do for our anniversary? She has always said, Victor, you are so blessed that you get to do what you love, and to follow your passions. I see it like if you're a really gifted athlete or a really gifted entertainer, you're getting to do what you love. And this work of ESG and corporate philanthropy, I love it, and I'm inspired by it. This work of leading these 2,000 teammates from all different backgrounds and walks of life, and to be their cheerleader. I love it. And I get energized every day, 37 years in, that I can still wake up in the morning and say, wow, I look forward to making a difference today. I look forward to validating someone today and showing them their value and what they contribute to to our bottom line. I look forward to working with this nonprofit and helping them reach the least amongst us and to drive their mission and their vision. I tell my teammates at the bank all the time, I have the best job for the best company in the country. And I hope it shows because I'm so fortunate.
Well, thank you, Victor. And I think this session, at least for me personally, has been really inspiring, and hopefully our participants as well. I think we've really sort of realized through this and through other experiences that, the perception of networking of, hey, I'm going to go in a room and just see what I can get out of everyone else who's here, really isn't the kind of networking that's the long-term values aligned. That really the perception we're trying to purvey is it's all about education. What opportunities can I take for myself to learn, both in the classroom, from mentors, from colleagues, but also it's that reverse flow of education out. So not only what education am I taking in about myself and about my surroundings and about my views, but what can I share with others as I do gain wisdom? How can I give it back out into the community and be that mentee and sort of turn this concept of networking rather than sort of an amoeba that's just sort of taking away things from other people, taking their time or taking opportunities, but really into truly the sort of knowledge ecosystem where we are benefiting, but also helping those around us to flourish and to learn and to find opportunities. And a big thank you to you, Victor, for your time today and just your values set around education, nonstop education, servant leadership, and the constant focus of how can we be giving back to our community at each and every stage of both our professional and personal lives. So a big thank you, and appreciate everyone's time today here on the panel.
Thank you, Laura. My pleasure.
And speaking from our team, thank you, Laura, and thank you, Victor, so much for being here. We really appreciated you sharing personal journeys as well as insights that you've gained through your career and lives. It really means a lot. And I just encourage our audience, if you joined us late or would like to share this recording with a friend or colleague, to head to our YouTube page. We've got recordings of all the events throughout these weeks there. And hope to see you at the next one. And Laura and Victor, we'd love to have you back, maybe in person next time.
It'd be our pleasure.
With that, thank you, Ben.
Take care, you all.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.